Hey everybody, and welcome to Flick Connection. I'm your host Darren Van Dam, and this is Thanksgiving week. I'm posting a series of videos. I'm doing something different than normal. Normally, you're used to seeing me do a list of 10 or 20 movies, usually hidden gems, but what I'm doing this week is I'm focusing on some of my absolute favorite movies of 2021. I'm going to be spending more time than usual talking about them, and I'm starting off this series with one of my favorite Netflix originals I've seen all year, and honestly, one of my favorite Netflix originals I've ever seen, and that is The Harder They Fall. But not only is The Harder They Fall one of the best Netflix originals I've seen in quite a while, it's also one of the best and most interesting westerns I've seen in a really long time. The Harder They Fall features a nearly all-black cast, and as usual as that is for a western setting, it never felt forced. In fact, The Harder They Fall focuses very little on race. It mostly focuses on bringing these characters that are all based on real people all together in sort of their own mashup movie, which is something that's been done before. It's just never really been done with an all-black cast based on actual black characters. So for starters, this movie has an incredible cast, and there is a handful, a big fat handful of some really great performances, but a lot of them are from people I already expect great performances from. People like Idris Elba, Zazie Beetz, Lakeith Stanfield, and then Jonathan Majors is really great in the lead, if there even is really a lead role in this movie. I'll also say I've never really been a big fan of Regina King. For some reason, I always feel like I'm aware that she's acting, like always. It was less so in The Harder They Fall, even though she was a little bit heavy-handed with her accent. And honestly, just about everybody is really great in this movie, and not just because they're doing a good job, but the dialogue written for them is really good and interesting.
Now, I want you to vacate immediately or die where you lay.
And the dialogue's not totally done in the style of Quentin Tarantino, but it's still different enough to feel totally unique unto itself. But that said, there were two performances that really stood out to me in this movie. Danielle Deadwyler plays Cuffy. I'm really not that familiar with her work, but she really stood out in this role. It's very much a character actor's performance, but she kills it and steals just about every single scene that she's in. And then the one that really got me, threw me through a loop, was Deon Cole. I've always been familiar with him from back when he was on Conan. I think he's funny, I like him. But he plays a killer role. He's not on screen much, but I'm very interested to see what he does next. I hope some other filmmakers watch this movie, see what he did, and put him into some other really great character actor roles, even if they're small ones. I'm very interested to see what he does next. I was blown away by what he did in this movie. There's also a lot of really interesting camera work in The Harder They Fall, which you don't typically get with Netflix originals. Now, I know this was released in theaters for a short run, but typically with Netflix originals, they have a little bit more of a made-for-TV quality. And what that means is they're shot a little bit faster, they're done on a budget, so they just put the camera kind of wherever it works, wherever it makes the most sense. There's not a lot of different shots, and there's certainly not a lot done that's really interesting, but The Harder They Fall is full of really interesting shots, and the significance of that is it takes time to reset up all the equipment, all the lights, the cameras, reset the actors, rehearse, just to get some cool shots that are over and done with very quickly. And that costs way more money because all these actors and a lot of these people in this movie are fairly well paid. Even if they took lower salaries for this movie, they're still well paid. They have to be on set for more days. It takes longer to shoot. Everybody behind the camera gets a paycheck, and they're there for more days in order to set up shots like these, so it makes everything more expensive, which is why you don't see it with Netflix originals very much, but it adds so much flavor, especially when it's done well, which it was done very well here. Now, if I'm gonna say anything negative about it, it does suffer from having too many characters, and that is a problem that a lot of movies have. There's just too many stories, too many characters in order to really get attached to any one of them. As I said, Jonathan Majors' character, He's fantastic. I would have been happy just watching his movie. But that is kind of the point of The Harder They Fall, is to show all of these characters in this more rich world. So as a result, the story does suffer a little bit, but I did enjoy, again, everyone's performance. I mean, every single character brought something different to the screen, and a lot of it was familiar. A lot of it felt like familiar Westerns. A lot of it felt a little bit like Tarantino, but there was also a lot of it that felt fresh and new, which is why I think this is one of my more favorite ones I've seen in a while, because it did have that flavor. It had something that other ones don't, and especially in a genre like Westerns, one I'm very familiar with, one that I love. And I don't just love the vintage ones. In fact, even though they don't make them much anymore, I think some of the best Westerns ever made have been made since sort of the era of the Western. I'm talking about movies like Unforgiven, which came out in the 90s, Dances with Wolves, also in the 90s, and then I think Django Unchained is a fantastic Western and has the most in common with The Harder They Fall, not just because it also focused on a black character, but it has a very similar look and style. Yet I did not ever feel like the filmmakers of The Harder They Fall were ripping off Tarantino, even though they were certainly influenced by him. And in addition to all of that, they really do push the style thing quite a bit, and they tested the limits of it, and I think they maybe reached the line a couple of times, but I still really enjoyed a lot of that stuff, including when they go to a white town. I'm not gonna kind of spoil the little stylistic surprise as what they do there, but I thought it was clever, and it never felt too on the nose or like we were rehashing things we've seen before with regards to race relations in this time period. Again, I felt like I was looking at a similar type of setup that I've seen before through a very different lens than I've ever seen it before. If you have not watched it yet, this could make for a great Thanksgiving week movie. It's almost 2.5 hours long, but it blows by pretty quick because, again, there's so much crammed into it. And the fact that it's based in American history, even though it's a fictional story and it is very stylized, it's got this sense of Americana about it that is very appropriate for Thanksgiving week. And even though there's quite a bit of bloodshed and chaos going on in this movie, it never felt too heavy-handed. It's never focusing on race too much or hatred or anything like that. It's just a good, solid Western story. So if it's been a while since you've seen one, I highly recommend checking it out soon, because not only is this one of my favorite Netflix originals I've seen in a while, depending on what comes out the next few weeks we have left in 2021, I could easily see this making its way onto my official top 10 movies of 2021. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned to Flick Connection this week. Make sure you've got the subscribe button clicked and the little bell icon, because I'm going to be releasing more videos about some of my favorite movies, and I guarantee you quite a few of them you have not seen. So stay tuned for that for Thanksgiving week, and I'll be back next week with more of my list videos that you know me for. But thanks for watching this video, and you will see me on the next one.